Hello listeners and welcome to the latest episode of the Spin Podcast, brought to you by the CPG and hosted by myself, Tom Bentley. Before we get started on today's episode, don't forget to check out and share across your own channels previous editions of the Spin Podcast. You can find us on our website, cpg.golf, or by visiting many podcast hosting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Podbean and Spotify. So, joining me on today's Development Digest edition of The Spin is PGA of Latvia Professional, Anna Svanka. Hi Anna.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Nice to have you joining us today. And we're going to be focusing on Anna's career as a PGA of Latvia member, and previously to that, there's a few things we're going to delve in the episode today. But just briefly, she is a member of the PGA of Latvia, which has become a CPG member country very recently, and we're really looking forward to working with the PGA of Latvia in the coming months and years to develop the association and develop members like Anna in advancing her career and having an impact on the game of golf. So Anna, just before we get started into the real substance of today's episode, could you just introduce yourself and just give a brief overview of where you're from, some of the stuff you've been doing, your current job, very, very brief overview of yourself as a person and a PGA professional.
Yes, of course. My name is Diane Schwanka. I'm from Riga, Latvia. I'm a teaching professional at the Ozo Golf Club, which is also my home course and the course I've been playing at for nearly 20 years. I've played golf for 20 years. I went to the US and got my exercise science degree there. Played on a college team for 4 years at a Division I, and we were 21st in the country when I was a senior. So that was a great experience that allowed me to become a better coach, I think. So I'm studying at the University of Birmingham now to be a PGA certified golf coach. And yeah, that's a brief overview.
No, that's perfect. We're gonna delve into it in more detail anyway. So let's start from really your early years of playing golf. And the obvious question really for me is, what got you into golf first of all? As a female playing golf and a female playing golf in Latvia, what was your main motivations to start playing golf?
Well, I guess it actually began before I was born. So when my parents were expecting me, my mom couldn't sleep during the nights. So she used to watch the PGA Tour, which worked great because of the time difference. And she used to watch the Masters, and she remembers Phil Mickelson really well from 25 years ago. And then, well, you have to know the background as well. Golf in the 90s in Latvia, there was one golf course with 9 holes and maybe less than 100 players. So it wasn't like she was watching golf because she's playing golf or she knew someone that was. It was something that was on while she couldn't sleep. And then a few years later, I was playing tennis at a time and I was watching TV, and I remember this commercial coming up, and it said that they were going to open the first golf school in Latvia. And I got so excited. So I waited around the TV for my parents to see the commercial because I couldn't really tell them where it was or what it was or when it was. So I spent a lot of time in front of the TV trying to get my parents to see this commercial. And then they took me to the course, and that's where it all began. I just loved it. So
I've got to say that is one of the we usually hear stories from people like Tiger and some of the real big guys who've played golf from the ages of 1 or 2, but you can claim that you were playing golf even before that. That's a brilliant example. I've not heard that one before. So what really drives your enjoyment of the game? What is it about golf that has kept you playing it for over 20 years?
I mean, I've tried to explain it to myself, but I'm not sure. At this point, it's like I can't really tell you how me and golf can be separated. Like, the game has given me so much. I think it's made up most of my character. It's given me so many role models. It's made me closer with my parents and my family. I've made so many friends throughout, like all over the world. And it was a way for me to get an education. And now I get to give back all, or at least some of it that golf has given to me. I get to give it back by teaching others. So it's just, I guess you can say that I love golf. It's such a big part of my life.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to some of the examples you've just given there, particularly myself as well as a member, as a PGA member. But yeah, it's that element of it teaches you various life skills and that ability to give back. It comes in full circle for us as PGA professionals, doesn't it? That's what's super exciting for working in the industry. Okay, so growing up as a young girl playing golf in Latvia, were there any real challenges that perhaps others from other countries could relate to? For example, restrictions in golf clubs, perhaps limited opportunity. Were there anything that you experienced in your time as a junior golfer?
Well, as I said, golf was and still is a really new sport in Latvia. So whenever I started playing, there were maybe a couple of hundred players. And I actually have the 363rd card in Latvia. So like you could say that I'm the 363rd player. Now we've gotten up to 3,000. So it's been developing. But I mean, because no one really knew how it had to be done. But as I see it, we just had a lot of opportunities to develop. So it was kind of good that it was such a new sport, because we had the whole wide open world and we just could do whatever. But by this time I started playing, the first 18-hole course had opened, the Ozo golf course where I grew up. And it was actually thanks to an NHL star, Sandis Ozoliņš. He's a Latvian player, and he opened this golf course. And he also helped with the Riga Golf School, which is why I started playing in the first place. So he was he started the movement, and then we got more players into it. And then with the golf school, the director and I guess founder, Santa Pucha, she has been a great help along the way. I mean, she's watched so many kids grow up to be golfers and grow up to be young adults, and I'm really thankful to her and to the golf school and also golf club.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a good point you're making there, in that with golf being relatively new in Latvia in comparison to some of the more established markets, like America, Australia, the UK, most of Europe, you've almost got a blank canvas to work from, which is great, and shape golf how you want to in the future with limited restrictions, I suppose. So I want to just sort of get on to the point of where you realised that golf wasn't just a hobby; it was a career or a potential career for you. When was that turning point in your development as a junior? When did you realise I want to give back to the game in a way and become a PGA professional?
Well, I don't have an exact date, but I have almost a date.
Okay.
Again, for a little background, whenever I started playing, I always came in 7th. And I know this because there were 7 players and I was always the last. So it was kind of just, I had to be hardworking to get somewhere, because it's not fun always losing, and staying in the last place. So my dad really helped me with it. He's probably the best not golf player that I know, because he doesn't play himself, but he knows so much about it, and he really helped me with my mental game, and he was always pushing me to get better and better. And I don't think I really knew that I was, or at the age of 8 or 9, I didn't really know that I was going to be a golf player or wanted to be a golf player. But I think my dad saw that I really loved the game. So he just kept pushing me and kept helping me to get better. And then I was around 9 or 10 when the first girl from Latvia went to US to study and play golf, like to play college golf, Laura Jansson. And that's when I understood that that's something that I could do. And that's an opportunity that golf can give me. So from then on, I just started working towards this goal. And yeah, it was hard work, a lot of years, but I think it was a good goal and a good stepping stone to get to where I am. Because whenever I went to the States and I played there and I played at a pretty high level, that's where I understood what I really wanted. And what I wanted was to come back and teach golf.
Yeah, and that flows really nicely into some of the questions I want to ask in a minute about the scholarship, about, you know, you traveling to America. It provides obviously a very good platform for really good players such as yourself to develop the games and really have a crack at high level, high performance golf. So you obviously became aware of this from somebody else who had gone over there. When did sort of talk about engaging in that process of applying for scholarships and who provided it and what you had to do to receive it, you know, that application process, and just talk to me in general about that that overview of getting yourself over to the States.
So it was kind of, again, because it's a small country, we'd get some offers coming to, again, Santa Pucha. And she would just, you know, if we had someone that age, she would just look into them and see if they could go and if they wanted to go. And it was all about playing, at least for me. Now that I look back into it, I should have done things differently probably, but I was just playing and I had these tournaments that I wanted to play, and Santa told me that I should play them if I wanted college coaches to see me. So then I just went there and I enjoyed myself and I played those tournaments, and my parents would walk on the sides and just watch me play, and they talked to the coaches. And I just, after the round, I wouldn't have even noticed that there was a coach there. I just, you know, played the game, enjoyed the round. So I got a couple of offers, but then the best one was from Campbell University. And I'm really glad that I went, because it was unexplainable. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's particularly with the support networks that you get over there as part of university or college golf. I can imagine it was a real platform or a jump up to help push yourself forward as a player and as a person as well, I suppose. With that, sort of, when did you realize? Was there a point in that process where you wanted to turn your attention towards more coaching and that kind of career route as a golfer, or was that afterwards? Did you finish? You came back to Latvia and realize I want to have a crack at coaching and developing myself as a pro, or was that part of the process over in America?
I think it was around my third year in US when I realized that I probably wanted to coach more than I wanted to play. So it was a long process for me to actually come to it, because I used to help out with the kids over the summers. So like at the golf school, we just go over on the course because they're little, they can't go on the course by themselves. So the older students would go with them and help them out and teach them some of the rules and some of the shots and everything. And I guess it just grew on me over the time. I just realized that this is amazing. This is awesome. You can teach someone to do something and you tell them this little thing. And if you tell them correctly, they implement it and they hit a great shot. And it's such an amazing feeling.
Yeah. And did you from the playing side of it, and then obviously you've just mentioned some of the coaching opportunities you got over there. Were those experiences, what sort of experiences do you rely on now as a coach? You know, as a player, we often say that not often good players make good coaches, but that's not necessarily always the case. And you've proven it yourself that to turn being a very good golfer and a very good player into a career, and being able to relay that through your coaching practice. So was there anything that you used from your scholarship or learned from your scholarship that you now apply in your work on a daily basis?
I'm sorry, could you maybe repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. So I'm just interested to find out that throughout your time as in the US, you were playing a lot and competing a lot at a high level. Was there some teachings and learnings that you gained from playing at that high level that you now use and apply as a golf coach on a day-to-day basis in Latvia now? You know, for example, some people, it is important to rely on playing experiences, competing under pressure, those sort of things that coaches can relate then to their pupils, for example.
So I actually use quite a few. I really teach through my experience, if that makes sense. Like whenever I had some drills that I really liked, I try to apply them. Whether it's a kid, I do it one way, and then if it's an adult, then I try to make it so that it's interesting for them. So I really just try to make the game interesting so that people would stay in it, because if they just learn how to play, it's not going to keep them in the game. And also one more thing that I think is really important, my dad taught me that you really have to listen to everyone, because every single person can teach you something. So whenever I would meet anyone, really, it didn't matter to me if they were a high class player or someone who's just started, everyone has something that can help your game. I'm not saying that you should take everything from everyone and then lose yourself, but if you take this one thing that they do really well and you apply it to your game, it's really going to help you. And then, well, I have to mention, I had a lot of great role models, like the coaches. It's just, I've been really, really lucky. And actually going back to the development of golf in Latvia, so we had the RNA and the European Golf PGA send over some coaches to help us develop golf, namely Sarah Claridge and Kevin Flynn. And they've just, well, I mean, Sarah was the first one who got me to fit my clubs, for example. And both of them, they showed us that golf can be fun. They showed us a new way of how to practice. And I mean, now I use it, some of it, I use it to coach. So it's just, I've been very, very lucky with the people that have been around me.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point you make at the end as well, because as players, we all have role models that we look up to that are perhaps the top professionals on television, but also, you know, using the example of Sarah and Kevin as well, who's on our development team, having role models in the industry is just as equally as important, because they demonstrate what it takes to be a really impactful and influential person, how to make the game fun and ultimately develop the game moving forward. So I think that point at the end you make is a really good one. So sort of fast tracking now back towards now your time in Latvia and the PGA of Latvia and that sort of stuff. How did you eventually become a PGA of Latvia member? What was involved with that, and when did you finally pass as part of being a PGA of Latvia member?
It kind of goes through my studies at University of Birmingham. So I'm doing the foundation degree in professional golf studies to be a PGA certified coach. So it was a matter of me joining the PGA of Latvia as a part of their team to develop golf. So it just kind of all went through that, through my studies over there and me wanting to be a teaching professional. And then most of the coaches that are teaching in Latvia, or the ones that are accredited, they are in this organization. So whenever they asked me, I was like, of course, I want to be part of it.
And how are you finding that journey of going through the education process, you know, learning about coaching, coaching theory, sports science, equipment technology? What are your favorite subjects? What really gets you passionate in the area of PGA education?
Well, it's actually, I got asked this question yesterday by my friend, what is the most interesting part? And I mean, honestly, all of it is really interesting. I have a background in exercise science, so the sports science part is really interesting to me. And then also I am taking classes to be a physical therapist. So that kind of all plays into it. And I find that's the part that maybe interests me the most, because I look at golf as a way of a healthy life. So I think it would be really great to get a lot of people involved just for the sake of their health, because you're outdoors, you're walking, you're exercising. It is a great challenge to the postural stability. So it's just, if we can involve more people into it, I think the world's going to become more healthy. But also, I think, well, the golf coaching is obviously really interesting, and the industry skills and the golf technologies, that's something that's relatively new to me and really challenging, but it's also very, 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 very interesting. And I also love that there's the business side of things, because I always felt like I was kind of missing it, because whenever I was over at States, I never thought to take a business class. But now, 2 years later, I realized that I missed it. Like, I miss it. And then now, since I have it at the golf studies, I think it's really good and beneficial.
Yeah, I really like that point you made about the healthier lifestyle. Particularly, that has really become an important point over the last year, especially with coronavirus, and highlighting that golf is an outdoor space. It's socially distanced. It's good for your physical, your mental, and your social well-being. I really like that way of looking at it. So yeah, that's a really good point. So as a female professional, I want to just get into this area a little bit. With your work over there, do you have any sort of do you feel any responsibility, I suppose, having gone through that journey yourself as a female golfer to get to a really high level, to help develop that area of the game? Obviously, it's a very highlighted area across most of the world right now, that we need to drive female golf, and perhaps it's going to take role models such as yourself to really highlight that this game is for women, and you can go right to the very top as part of it.
Yeah, I actually feel responsible for it, but we have actually been kind of good with it in Latvia. So we usually have around 30 to 40% of the players are female. And we have the Latvian Ladies Golf Federation, and we have Women in Golf Days throughout the year. And we have like a mini tour that ladies play on Mondays, which just started last year. And I think it's great, because the men have been doing that for 9 years now. But I totally agree. I think it's a matter of involving more women in golf. And it's not just the young ladies or young adults. I think it's also about the senior ladies, because golf is so new in Latvia. We've had it for 30 years maybe. So there's not a lot of players that have started when they were, I don't know, 30 and then gone through the 30 years. There's not a lot of senior players. And as I mentioned earlier, it's really, really great for your health. And so I think we should involve more women of all age groups to play golf, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I can also, sorry, I was just going to say that I can see now, since we didn't really have female coaches in Latvia, then I can see that there are more females interested in starting to learn golf now that I'm also a part of the teaching team. So I think that's great, and I really look forward to how it's all going to develop.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I really like, again, that point you make about it just demonstrates how the structures at the top, so the associations and the federations and the PGA of Latvia, how having those cooperate and collaborate and work together, it has an impact lower down in terms of opportunity for all golfers, tournaments, the tours that you mentioned as well. And that's something that the CPG is really trying to, an ethos we're trying to take forward with all our organizations to, if we make an impact at the top, it feeds down right to the bottom. So, yeah, I liked that. So finally, just going into sort of, obviously still doing your training right now, but where do you mentioned about physiotherapy and the sports science area. So where specifically do you sort of see your career taking you in the future? Would you like to remain as a teaching pro, or would you like to go down more of the high performance route? Where would you like to go as in your career?
Right now, I think I'd like to stay in teaching. I think the sports science part of it and the physical therapy is a great addition to coaching. Because I mean, it allows me to look at players not only as golfers, but as humans that maybe have their own quirks. And I think it would make me a better coach if I understood them from more than one perspective. So that's why I'm doing that. But honestly, I don't know. None of us knew what was going to happen last year. So I can't really tell you how it's going to go in the next years. But I really hope that I can keep teaching in Latvia and help develop the golf here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I had a very good point to keep going with the flow. Sometimes we don't know what the future holds, and that often holds true for careers. It can take a quick shot left turn when we think we're going somewhere, it goes elsewhere, and that's the beauty of it working in golf. It really can take you anywhere, and the opportunities are endless. No, that's perfect. So thank you very much, Anna. That wraps up today's episode. Is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners just before we finish?
I guess not. Thank you.
No, that's okay. Thank you for coming on to the spin today. I really appreciate it. And I hope all the listeners really enjoyed it too. Don't forget to share and listen to this, and listen to all previous episodes on the CPG website as well. I'm Tom Bentley, your host, and thank you for listening to The Spin. Okay, welcome to today's Development Digest episode of The Spin podcast with your host, Tom Bentley. And joining me today is Phoebe Torrance, a PGA professional currently working in Australia at Metropolitan Golf Club. Phoebe, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Great to have you on. And actually, you've just assumed a new role at Metropolitan Golf Club. Could you just tell us a little bit about that and what your role includes?
Yeah, so it's women's golf and development manager. It's pretty similar to what I'm already doing, except I'm solely going to be focused with women's golf now. So I can kind of put all my attention on developing women's golf amongst the members, but also getting new women and beginner golfers involved in members golf clubs.
So for those who've seen the title of the episode and just listened to that, then you can obviously guess that today's topic is on female golf, women's golf, girls golf. But we're going to try and take a little bit of a different tangent to it. I was keen to, when thinking about this episode, how to plan it, I was wanting to take a bit of a younger sort of Generation Z approach to women's golf, because sometimes the voices and the perspectives of those are often from men, which is ironic. But also generally sort of older generation people, which is not necessarily the right way of looking at it, I don't think. So I was keen to take a millennial / Gen Z approach to this episode. So we'll get straight stuck in, I think, with this, if that's okay, Phoebe. So just first, as we've obviously alluded to with your role at Metropolitan Golf Club, you're involved in women's golf on a much more close level now. But just give me a bit of a snapshot about you, your sort of background, how you got into golf, and how you actually got over to Australia, because you're originally from the UK, aren't you?
Yeah, so I'll try and keep this short and sweet, but how I got into golf was through my dad playing golf when I was younger, probably around 14. Started playing golf at my local golf club where he was a member. Really enjoyed it, got quite good, never never super good, never a super low handicap, never in the plus, kind of +1, +2, always kind of around low single figures. So when it came to choosing what to do at university, I had so many people around me saying, oh, choose something that you enjoy. And golf had kind of consumed my childhood and my life to that point, and I really enjoyed it. So that's when I did the AGMS degree, so Applied Golf Management Studies at Birmingham University, which is where I met you. And I did that degree, which kind of got my attention because you can do your PGA alongside it. So you're getting a business degree essentially, but with a focus around sport, but also doing your PGA so you can coach. So it was a bit of a hybrid. So it was a good option for me. And also the kind of the job opportunities off of the back of that from students who had been through that same program was really kind of, I guess, appealing, you know, worldwide, because I knew that my parents, at this point, I knew my parents were moving to Australia. So I knew that I wanted to work potentially not just in the UK. So that was why it really kind of appealed to me. From there, also all the placements. So we did some great placements at world-class facilities. So I did mine at Wentworth Golf Club and Sunningdale, and also volunteered at a lot of prestigious events like the BMW Championship, the Women's British Open, and just got a huge wealth of knowledge, and experience through those placements, which was great because they're some of the best clubs. And growing up watching golf, you kind of watch BMW Championships on TV, and so to work there and to experience it hands-on was just great. And then from there, obviously, once I graduated, moved to Australia, which was harder than I thought it was going to be, but I actually got the job at Metropolitan Golf Club before moving to Australia. And looking back, that was great for me because it meant I got straight into work, straight into the industry, because the golf industry is small, and everyone does know everyone. But when you move country, you kind of start from scratch again. You're building your contacts again. You don't really know any of the PGA professionals from country to country. So yeah, that's kind of a brief background to my golf.
Yeah, no, it's good. I really wanted I really want to get to understand a bit more about you, because it's not just about, this episode is not just about the industry and what's right and what's wrong with it. I want to use you as a bit of a case study, if that's okay as well, to understand your journey through golf. At the end of the day, you're a young female PGA professional, which is still the minority in comparison to the majority working in the industry. So I think it's important to understand your journey in golf. So obviously we know each other really well. I mean, it's about 6 years since we started university, I think. So we obviously we've followed similar journeys and similar paths to where we are now. Was there when you were younger, you alluded to that you weren't necessarily like a plus figure handicapper and all the sort of performance side of it. So did you realize quite at an early age that you'd rather work in the industry rather than play golf as a profession?
I think for me, actually, it was less about, I wasn't at the point when I was at applying for universities, I wasn't at kind of an excellent standard, but it wasn't that kind of put me off playing. It was obviously being a woman in golf, there weren't as many opportunities, and it was a lot more difficult to kind of have it as a career, a full-time career. I mean, I was hearing kind of everyone around me saying that most of the women on tour were having part-time jobs whilst being tour players, and it just sounded, it's not that I was put off by the hard work, but it just sounded like there was a lot less opportunity. So I wanted to basically cover all bases, and I didn't necessarily rule it out when I started university. I just decided that university was something I was going to do first as a backup plan. And then one thing led to another. I kind of delved into the industry, and then I guess realized that I didn't spend enough time practicing and playing, and spent more time on the business elements of it.
Yeah, it's often the challenge now when you get into the world of work, don't you? You struggle to get out on the golf course, which is ironic really when you're working in it. But no, that's fine. Yeah. So with your current role now, was that something you were always passionate about during at university? Did you always want to get involved in female golf? I mean, it's okay to not do. Was that developed over time as you've sort of gone off different tangents and obviously moved to Australia, or was that always the sort of the outset?
Yeah, no, I guess it's always been there, but not to the extent it is now. Like, I guess growing up in golf and through university, and even just kind of the amount of girls on the AGMS course, like it was just such a highlight point that there aren't enough women in golf, and we need women in these kind of managerial positions and in the working in the industry from a PGA professional to actually even kind of start to encourage more girls to take up the game, because they have no, it's all well and good having role models from like a playing perspective and aspire, if you want to aspire to be a player, but if we haven't got PGA professionals who are women and women who are kind of working in managerial positions within golf clubs, then where's the future of golf for kind of that side of coaching and things for females?
Yeah, that's a really really valuable point. We're going to come on to role models in a bit, because that's a good point to make. But just before that, then, I just want to focus on, as I said, obviously we're looking at your upbringing in golf, and I'm going to split it into sort of positives and negatives. So when you were growing up, you mentioned that there wasn't as much opportunity, but when it came to actually just playing golf, I always reflect back on my own experiences as a golfer, and I recently wrote a bit of a blog about this, because I could have sort of grew up in a blue collar style golf club that was working class rather than your traditional white collar golf clubs, and there was a real disparity between what I experienced and what those who some of my friends had grown up and experienced. Was there anything? Did you ever feel welcome within golf, like at your golf club and during competitions? Was there anything that you looked at or reflect back on and think, hang on, that quite wasn't right? I mean, I always think, for example, ladies always teeing off in the afternoon and not allowed to tee off in the morning. That's it's a very simple example, but reflective of general attitudes at golf clubs sometimes.
Yeah, it was really mixed. So I did feel welcome at my golf club. The women, and I think at the time my next door neighbours were also members of the same golf club, so they knew me. So yeah, I did feel welcome. Having said that, when I got to a point where I was playing in more competitions and winning quite a few competitions, that's when the older women didn't like that. They didn't like and it was women actually, which is strange enough. The older women didn't like the fact that there were these younger girls kind of winning these events, which was quite strange to kind of comprehend.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
They're kind of on the same side. But yeah, so that was, but also I had friends who were members of other golf clubs, so my golf club actually had competitions for women on a Saturday, which was great. And you could play with the men, you could play with the women, which was great for people that worked full time, for me that went to school. However, I had friends that were members of also local golf clubs, the same kind of same type of golf clubs, but the women's competition was always on a Tuesday and they always needed to play in the morning. So obviously if you at school, that kind of gives you no opportunity to play in the competitions, which is ultimately what you need to be doing to kind of work on your handicap and improve your golf. So yeah, I definitely saw kind of all sides, kind of both sides of the coin.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. And so then also, you mentioned this earlier about role models, and focusing on tour players and how there's obviously women's professional tours, LPGA, LET, and that inspires people to play, but not necessarily in the right areas in the industry as well. So you're kind of connecting the dots there and saying that actually we need some role models working in golf clubs and working at the top of key organizations to then inspire other women to get involved, not just from a playing perspective, but also a working perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think role models for women's golf from a playing perspective are really strong. Like we've got great role models. But I also think we need, like, there's going to be a point where if there's no women at grassroots level starting and playing golf, and not enough of girls playing golf at that level, then how are we expecting, where are we getting women who are going into PGA professions or kind of golf club environments and working their way up the hierarchy and getting into managerial positions, because they're the positions that make all the decisions. And if we've got women kind of in those positions, then we can access their viewpoints and their backgrounds, their stories, how they got into golf, a bit like we're doing now. But we can really analyze kind of everyone's and use women in those positions to help, I guess, guide the future of women's and girls golf.
Yeah, it's important to get experiences shared, understandings shared, because I think the problem sometimes is that, as I said earlier, that it's quite ironic that sometimes the viewpoints around these things are often coming from the wrong or not necessarily the most important person there, which is women themselves. And so I know that the R&A, they're doing some really, really good work. Jackie Davidson, who's the director of development there, they've got the For Everyone campaign, which is going really well, the Women in Golf Charter and stuff. And they're starting to pave the way now for organisations to view it in that way, that women have got to be sort of in those positions to help provide the right context. They've lived those experiences, you know. So with your role at the moment then, I know you mentioned it earlier, but talk me through a bit of a day-to-day of what you're actually doing as a female development manager. What does that include? What are you actually getting involved with at Metropolitan?
So I actually kind of, the full process really. So as a club, we've recently kind of introduced, I guess at the start we had beginner clinics, which was great, but we had no clear pathway of, okay, they've started golf, they've learned to play golf, but where's the pathway into being a member? Because actually as a beginner golfer, you're a long way up. Just learning to play golf is great, and getting enjoyment out of it is so good. And we were really successful at that as a club. But then what's the next step? Because you don't jump from learning to play golf to then going into membership, especially at some of the top clubs, for example, which it's obviously not cheap and not accessible for everyone to just join a members golf club. So I guess we've kind of developed this pathway where we've got this beginner program. We've also introduced kind of a program that follows the beginner program that not only teaches you about the basics, but kind of bridges the gap between membership and learning to play golf, which is kind of your scoring, how to score a Stableford, your etiquette, what some of the basic rules are, because I think that can be quite overwhelming for women. Not just women, but everyone, but especially women, because we're a minority group and there's not many of us, to kind of all of a sudden be learning to play golf and then being a member and getting on the first tee and thinking about kind of just hitting the ball down the fairway. The last thing you want to be thinking is, how do I score a Stableford score? So I think if you're equipped with all of that and you've got a good understanding of that before you kind of go into any type of membership, it's a lot more comfortable, and you've got a lot more confidence, and ultimately you're going to be spending more time at the golf club, and your long-term involvement in the sport is going to be so much longer, which is what we want. And then from there, we've actually got an excellent program called the 12 months tuition program. And this tuition program is basically almost like a tryout membership for 12 months. So they do this tuition program, they get mentored by the members through the whole of it, and then after, they've got the option to join, and they get, throughout this program, they have clinics, rules sessions, and that's something that golf clubs really don't offer. They don't offer that trial, see if you like it, because joining a members club is like almost joining an extended family. It's important that you can the social element for women is so important. So to be able to do it for 12 months and get involved in everything throughout the club, from social events to golf, just all of it is, I think, a really good way to get women to join members after that.
Yeah, they're valuable. They're valuable ways of doing it, because sometimes it's that element of when you join a golf club, it's quite a big step for just anybody, really, isn't it? I suppose, but especially for, like you say, especially for women who are generally a minority group there. you've got to try and get them integrated into the golf club, but that's not necessarily a simple process of just signing them up and expecting them to go out there and play with the members. You've got to kind of ease a new member in anyway, whoever they are. So
Yes.
I've not heard of that before. That's a really cool idea. How has it been received? How have all these programs and initiatives been received so far? I mean, talk to me about your ladies section at the minute and how they're getting on.
The ladies section at Metropolitan is really good, really strong. There's a lot of women who are passionate about getting more women into golf. That's the one thing that I noticed when I started working at Metropolitan, which is great because you do need a handful of women who are happy to be mentors and, you know, really put a lot of time and effort into creating kind of happy but good environments for women to kind of be welcomed into the club. So yeah, the ladies section at Metropolitan is really good and it's only getting stronger. And, you know, it's great to see in these clinics as well, we're not just getting kind of, generally when you join in golf club, it's at that point in your life where kind of maybe you've gone down from full-time to part-time work, or your kids have left home, graduated from university, got families of their own. So you've basically got this free time. So you can delve into a new sport. But actually with these clinics, we're getting young girls my age, like, so I think about 7 clinics a week, one being on a Sunday. And that Sunday clinic is kind of full of young girls, which is great. And not kind of school age girls. It's girls who are now in full-time work, which generally wouldn't be your kind of normal members of a golf club because of their age. But that's great to see. So we're getting women of all kind of women and girls.
What do you put that down to, out of interest, having that sort of age group involved? Because that's such a rarity these days, isn't it?
It is, and that's why as well we've kind of made, you know, a real effort to make sure that that's, if there's a cluster of girls who are kind of 24, 25 in the Sunday session, we kind of get them all together and get them all introduced as quick as we can, even if it's socially, you know, even if it's for a drink in the bar or a coffee or, you know, like an extra clinic we have to do. I think it's down, look, I think a lot of the members have got nieces and things. I think that's how that was the catalyst for it. And then from there, it's just friends of friends. And often when they sign up, they'll sign up and they won't want to come alone, which is fine. They'll want to come with a couple of friends that they know, because it's more comfortable. When you're starting a sport and you've never played before, you're probably worried that you're going to make yourself look silly. So coming along with a friend, I think it helps. It just helps with confidence. So I think that's definitely how we got the first few girls, was through like members' family. But then from there, it's
a domino effect though, because as soon as you get, as we've said, as soon as you get people sort of our age playing, they tell their friends and then they tell their friends, and it grows exponentially pretty quickly, right? So it's not, you know, although they've come directly from membership, the idea is that will indirectly impact and create growth from outside. So I don't think it's a very good way of tackling that.
Exactly.
So then let's have a look a bit wider afield about the industry in general and try and get some of your viewpoints on some of the stuff that's going off at the moment. So I don't know if you've seen recently or over the last few months, there's a big push to transition influencer marketing, transition that away from your typical sort of tour pros and getting them involved in stuff and programs and initiatives, and going away from that and going to people who haven't made their name in golf but have made their name elsewhere, perhaps have a really large following. So the likes of Niall Horan, who's working with the RNA, for example, Iona Stephen, Alex O'Loughlin, Jazzy Golfer, those kind of people who aren't professional golfers but have obviously got a big reach and audience out there. Just sort of want to understand your take on that. Is that, for me, I think that's a really positive thing. But what's your sort of, because I think you've met a couple of these people before as well, haven't you? Haven't you met Alex O'Loughlin or whatever?
I have met Alex. Look, I think they're all so good for golf, for women's golf, for men's golf, for all golf. It's just social media is something that should be used by all clubs now. And if clubs aren't using it now, then in a few years down the line, they're going to find themselves so far behind. So much, like you said, so much reach, so much, like, for example, you know, women's golf is a minority, but this is a way of connecting, finding kind of like-minded people and connecting them through social media, which is just great. Like, you know, it doesn't matter what age you are, there's someone out there on social media. There's plenty of people out there on social media that you can resonate with, whether it's through, you know, like fashion, golf fashion. If that's your focus and that's your passion, then there's someone out there who focuses on that. Or whether it's coaching videos or, you know, YouTube, you can access a golf lesson on YouTube now. So accessibility and social media is just so important.
Yeah, because for me, it's actually about the wider reach you get, because it doesn't matter if they're a good player or not, in terms of if they're a professional. Surely if they are interested in golf and they're keen to spread the message, they might be an 18 handicapper, but if they've got 1 million followers on Instagram and a tour professional who probably knows a lot more about golf than them, but only has 1,000 followers, well, you know, it's kind of, it doesn't make any sense. It makes perfect sense to go with the 1 million followers, right? I mean, you've got 1 million minds there who would be very keen to take up the game. So, I mean, I personally think that it's a really good idea. I'm just sort of interested to hear what you thought about it. So I wonder.
No, I agree.
So then I wanted to sort of focus then back onto actually the professional side of the game, because they still have an important role to play as well in growing women's golf. And let's look at sort of the Solheim Cup. I'm assuming you've watched the Solheim Cup before, or you've watched that and compared it to the Ryder Cup. What's your sort of opinion on the Solheim Cup?
I think it's great. I think obviously it's not quite as big as the Ryder Cup, but it's still great to have, like, you know, an equal event, you know, an event that is for women's golf and it's team orientated. So it gives a different side to golf, like a social, I guess it reflects a bit more the team formats we have in golf. So yeah, I think it's really good. Yeah. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I really like it. We work with we have a partner with Ping, a partnership with Ping, who obviously inaugurated the Solheim Cup right at the start, so they're really keen to push female golf anyway. So I'm obviously going to be biased in terms of my opinion on them, but you know, the one thing that came out for me for the Ryder Cup, because I went to the matches in 2018, the big thing that came out for me from that was the amount of people who watched it that didn't play golf. Again, it's kind of going back to that message I said previously to this about the role models, was that people were enjoying that product not necessarily because they played golf, because of the entertainment factor, the passion that was clearly on show, etc., etc. But again, most of those were male, or you know, from my experience or who I'd spoken to, they were male people who were getting interested in it. Okay, yeah. It was still a really strong takeaway, because it was getting people involved in golf who weren't, but it wasn't necessarily females. So I think that the Solheim Cup has that power and that strength in its message to do the same in women's sport. So I think it's I think things like that don't necessarily focus on the traditional nuances of golf, that play on the entertainment factor, the team golf, like you say. I think that's I think golf needs those things in place to help grow.
Yeah, and so, it's also, I also feel like that's relevant in golf clubs. So when you look at different formats and playing those fun formats, like the amount of people that women, when we do women's events, that really enjoy that format, because it takes the pressure off the individual to feel like they've got to perform well, and just puts like a kind of fun element to golf where it doesn't matter really what the score is, but you're a team, you know, like So that's just as important in golf clubs, you know, the social element, as it is in kind of the Solheim and the Ryder Cup. They kind of mirror each other and should.
What's your view on mixed gender competition? Do you think that's, if I was a female wanting to play golf, would you lean towards playing in female only competitions, or do you lean towards playing perhaps with husbands, friends that are males, and why?
I think I see two sides to that. So if my husband didn't play golf, if I had a husband, if he didn't play golf, um, and I didn't have male friends that played golf, I'd feel more comfortable just playing with women to start off with, as being new to golf. However, if kind of I had a partner playing golf and, you know, male friends playing golf, I'd feel comfortable. I guess it's what you know, isn't it? Who you're comfortable around. But I'm all for mixed gender golf. I think there needs to be more of it. But yeah, I do think, you know, if you don't know any men that play golf, and you're not 100% confident in your own golf, kind of mixing the two, I can understand why mixing the two together might be a bit daunting.
Yeah. Okay. So it ultimately depends on circumstance, really, as to why you think people would do that. Okay.
Like when I think of, I don't think I'd ever run I wouldn't say ever, but I don't think I'd do a women's and men's clinic together. Or maybe if they were the same ability, but I feel like women who are new to golf are more comfortable around learning with other women.
As an initial sort of out.
Yeah, as an initial.
Point.
Yeah, as a starting point, definitely a beginner level. That's what I've noticed. I'm not saying that's the case for all people, and I can see circumstances where it would work. You know, if you've got a husband and wife who are both learning to play golf, that would work. Or a friendship group where they're all learning to play golf. But yeah, I do find that the women's clinics, being all women, works really well.
Yeah. So then this next point is probably going to get a bit deep, but one of the things I was interested to sort of hear was about the sort of the labeling of various things at golf clubs. You know, ladies section, men's section. When I was a junior, it was junior section, and that integrated men and women at the same time. I'm just wondering, is that labeling of sections, junior, of competitions, etc., is that a bad thing?
I think now we've got the what's it in the UK? You've got the tees that are based on ability now, haven't you?
Yeah. So I think Jolf, US Kids, they do ability-based teen systems.
Yeah, but I thought they were introducing that to kind of all golfers, all, you know, men and women, because I guess the initial issue was the fact that women and men couldn't play in the same competition because of kind of working out, you know, how it would work with the tees and things and keeping it fair. Yeah,
I think I don't think it was just applicable to, I don't think they're just applicable to juniors. They are obviously for everybody, but they take that premise that it's based on how far you hit the ball. So ability rather than red tees equals ladies, yellow tees equals men, that sort of thing.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? I think, but I think there needs to be less. I think to have it more general and more integrated is only going to help golf, making it, I guess it comes back to that equality, doesn't it? Making it equal. It's a bit like how the captain of a golf club is always a man. It's always
that's a perfect example, because I was just wondering, like, if I was if I'm just trying to put myself in sort of your shoes and other girls, that if there was prices for memberships for ladies, there was ladies sections, there was, you know, ladies tees, it's kind of giving that, to me, it gives that bit of a message of that you're not part of the men's section. Maybe it should be just adult section, and just batting off an idea.
Yeah, what I think the issue is that a lot of the time it's not men's and women's. This is the women's section, and this is kind of, it's not even men's. This is like, it's like the captain and the women's captain. It's like, but it's not men's captain. It's just the captain. You know, it's the labeling of all the women's things as women, and not necessarily labeling the men's as men, but just assuming that they kind of take the hierarchy, I guess.
And I just think that's reflective of wider society in general anyway. So it's kind of it's not really a golf issue. It's more of a societal issue that happens elsewhere. Just sort of battering ideas off there. But
okay. And I do feel like golf though, like golf is one of the last sports, you know, when you look at sport inequality and going off kind of societal norms and things and traditional kind of how it used to be. Golf is one of the last things to change though. It's the one thing kind of holding on to those traditional values and social norms. Yeah,
it's definitely it's sometimes guilty of lagging behind, definitely, for sure. Okay, so let's just close things up for today's episode. Just want to just ask for one more sort of opinion or a piece of advice for those that are listening, maybe PGA pros. They may be representatives for organisations looking to increase inclusivity and diversity. What would be your one piece of advice from a girl who's lived it as to how they could get more females playing the game?
I think the one piece of advice I'd do is get a woman or a female PGA professional in a position where they can kind of really give their insight. But also just remember that it's not all about the golf for women. It's about the whole journey. So it doesn't need to be just clinics. It can be, you know, social events. There's got to be a pathway. And it needs to be holistic. It can't just be golf focused. That's one thing that I've really taken on and learned through this process, is that the social element for women is so important. So to kind of not just focus on clinics and get into golf sessions, but also focus on whether it's, you know, a physio session of exercises or just, you know, a social event. That's my piece of advice.
Yeah. Okay. And then I think from me, what I would suggest around the sort of area of social media, marketing, comms, seeing as that's what I'm involved in, I would say to people to focus less on traditional techniques. I would say focus on the fact, take those principles that we mentioned about influencer marketing. You know, if you're going to get somebody involved in your marketing activity to help grow your reach and your audience, perhaps look away from perhaps those who are very good golfers and more to those who have a larger audience. That might help. So just trying to think outside the box in terms of how you reach wider audiences, and social media plays an important part of that. That'll be my takeaway from this episode. So let's finish things up, and just say thanks to you, Phoebe, for joining us today. I feel that was really valuable. It was good to hear some insight and takes on the game and how women's golf is growing at Metropolitan Golf Club and wider afield. So thank you for coming on the show. Really appreciate your time and to join us.
No, thanks so much for having me. It's been good to chat women's golf.
Good stuff. And thank you everybody for listening. We'll see you next time.